Today I'll talk about a franchise that deserves a lot more love, and that's the Super Mario Land games. The games were Nintendo's way of bringing Super Mario Bros. Onto the Game Boy. There were only 3 games, and in one of them, you don't even play as Mario. But they were all solid titles, and they introduced a few characters to the Mario universe that have become staples. Between the ages of 6 and 12, the Game Boy was my life, and I had all the Super Mario Land games. They were some of my favorites on the system, and I feel like they're a bit underappreciated today. You don't hear about them that often. I mean, there's a few references to the series in Super Smash Bros., but that's about it. But I have many fond memories of playing these games growing up, and they deserve more love. So today I'll share the history of the Super Mario Land series and what makes these Game Boy games so wonderful. The Super Mario Land series began during the development of the Game Boy. The Game Boy was created by Research and Development 1, Nintendo's oldest internal development team. Their previous inventions included the Game & Watch, the D-pad, and Rob the Robot. Legendary Nintendo engineer Gunpei Yokoi and his co-worker Satoru Okada came up with the idea for the Game Boy. According to Okada, Yokoi originally envisioned the Game Boy as a successor to the Game & Watch. It was more of a toy than a gaming system and would play simple, quick games. Okada disagreed and thought the Game Boy could be more like the Famicom or the Nintendo Entertainment System, a full-fledged system with third-party developers. Yokoi eventually gave in. The new system needed games to go along with it, and Gunpei Yokoi knew just what to make. We initially thought that a character like Mario was essential for the launch of such a machine. Platform games are accessible to all, and Nintendo's mascot obviously had enough popularity to attract many potential users. However, Mario creator Shigeru Miyamoto wouldn't be involved. He was too busy working on his own projects for the Super Nintendo, like Super Mario World and The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. So development of the new Mario game would fall to R&D 1, the same team developing the Game Boy. It made sense. They knew the system inside and out, as well as its limitations. They also had experience in game development, having made several NES titles, including Kid Icarus and Metroid. Yokoi was pretty familiar with the Mario franchise as well. Miyamoto consulted with Yokoi when he made the original Mario Bros. Arcade game, as well as Super Mario Bros. From a design perspective, Miyamoto said Yokoi was the biggest influence on his career. It was the first time Miyamoto wasn't involved in a Super Mario game. Director duties were given to Satoru Okada. Okada was more of an engineer than a game designer, and that came in handy. They had to shrink the colorful world of Super Mario into a handheld system that could only display 4 colors. Being co-creator of the Game Boy, Okada was more than capable of the job. Because it was a brand new development team, R&D 1 created a whole new land for Mario to explore. Thus the game's title, Super Mario Land. It launched alongside the Game Boy on April 21, 1989 in Japan, July 31, 1989 in North America, and September 28, 1990 in Europe. Super Mario Land was originally planned to be the pack-in title with the Game Boy, but Nintendo famously decided to include Tetris instead, gambling that Tetris would appeal to a bigger market. In Super Mario Land, Mario explores the world of Sarasa Land. Its inhabitants have been hypnotized by an alien named Tatanga. He has also kidnapped Princess Daisy, who makes her debut in this game. Mario must traverse through the 4 kingdoms of Sarasa Land and rescue Daisy. This is the first Super Mario game not to feature Luigi, Toad, or Princess Peach. Now when you first start playing, the game definitely looks small, but compared to the other launch titles, it's actually pretty impressive. All the Game Boy launch titles had a somewhat similar look. Considering most of them were developed by R&D 1, that makes sense. If you look a little closer though, R&D 1 came up with a few tricks to get around some of the Game Boy's limitations. For example, there are no 1-up mushrooms. Why? In previous Super Mario games, a red mushroom made Mario bigger and a green mushroom gave Mario an extra life. With only 4 gray colors on the Game Boy, that's impossible to implement. So in Super Mario Land, mushrooms make Mario bigger, while hearts give Mario extra lives. Each of the 4 kingdoms look more like real-life locations than anything from the Mushroom Kingdom. Birabuto looks like ancient Egypt. It's got hieroglyphics, pyramids, the works. Muda, I'm honestly not sure what this is supposed to look like. It could be either the lost continent of Mu, which is supposedly in the Atlantic Ocean, or maybe the island of Bermuda. Either way, there's a bunch of water in this kingdom. Easton is definitely based on Easter Island, considering the large number of Moai statues situated throughout the level. And finally, there is Chai, which is based on ancient China. The music definitely has a Far East sound, and the level is filled with bamboo and, pardon my Chinese, jiangshi, which are basically hopping vampires. At the end of each level, there are 2 exits. If you can reach the top one, you'll get to play a Chutes and Ladder style bonus game to earn extra lives or a power-up. While exploring Sarasa Land, you'll hear catchy tunes by Hirokazu Tanaka, the game's composer. Tanaka is mostly known for his work on Earthbound and Dr. Mario, but his jingles in Super Mario Land are, as usual, very good. It's amazing how he can make a 30-second tune, and it never gets repetitive. The ending theme is also one of the best compositions on the Game Boy. Now, gameplay-wise, Mario feels off. Don't get me wrong, it's definitely a Mario game. There's stars, mushrooms, jumping, stomping on enemies, everything. But the physics are a little different than the NES games. Mario's movement is much more stiff, almost tank-like. You won't be skidding off the edge of a cliff in this game. Mario stops on a dime. Mario also has a new power-up as well. No, it's not a fire flower, although it definitely looks like one. It's the Super Ball. Firing a Super Ball bounces a projectile all over the screen, destroying enemies in its path. It can also collect coins. While going through Sarasa Land, you'll encounter a whole bunch of new enemies. Fun fact, the Super Mario Land manual kept all the Japanese names for the enemies. No, that's not a Koopa Troopa, it's Nokobone. These are also known as bombshell Koopas, since their shells explode after you jump on them. Oh, you think this is a Goomba? Nope, it's Chibibo. I mean, come on, this is a Goomba. There's Pakun flowers, Sarasa Land's version of the piranha plant. But most of the enemies are new here, including my favorite, Chicken. Besides platforming levels, there are also some shoot-'em-up levels, where Mario is in either a submarine or an airplane. These levels are a nice change of pace. Even the final boss stage where you fight Tatanga is a shoot-'em-up level. Interestingly enough, Miyamoto wanted these kinds of levels in the original Super Mario Bros., where Mario would ride a rocket and fire a beam gun. But when he couldn't make the controls work, he abandoned the idea. At just 12 levels, Super Mario Land is a short game. An average player can beat the game in under an hour. Once you beat it, you can play it through again in expert mode. There's no save system, but I doubt you'll need it. At the time, critics praised Super Mario Land. Computer and Video Games magazine said, "A small yet perfectly formed Mario whizzes past equally impressive sprites and backdrops." Electronic Gaming Monthly said, "Even though it's black and white and on a 2-inch screen, Super Mario Land is a fantastic game that is, above all, very fun to play." Now, I've got a few gripes with the game. You can't go backwards in a level, and I don't really like how Mario handles. It's also just way too short. It hasn't aged as well as the other games in the series. By the time the sequels came out, Nintendo had a better grasp of the Game Boy and what it could do. Nevertheless, Super Mario Land is still a decent platformer, and it showed the potential of the Game Boy, and that's important for a launch title. You might be shocked to learn that Super Mario Land sold more than 18 million copies worldwide, making it the 7th best-selling Super Mario game of all time and the 4th best-selling Game Boy game of all time. It sold more units than Super Mario Bros. 3. I'd probably chalk that up to the game being a launch title for the Game Boy. Super Mario Land proved to be very popular, even spawning toys, comics, a board game, and drinking glasses. The ambassadors of funk even made a song about it. It was enough popularity for Nintendo to begin working on a sequel. In November of 1991, a new group of employees at R&D 1 were assigned a project, Super Mario Land 2. Hiroji Kiyotake was given director duties. He had previously worked on Dr. Mario, but he was more well known for being the original character designer of Samus in Metroid. At first, Kiyotake and his team wanted to follow in the footsteps of the previous game, make a whole new world for Mario to explore. But they made it a little too new, and the feedback wasn't great. Kiyotake said, "When we showed our first draft to everyone, they were like, I don't know, is this Mario?" We realized we were on the wrong path, so we toned down that idea and made something a little closer to the existing Mario world. And when you play Super Mario Land 2, it definitely feels more like a Mario game. I'd say it's pretty close to Super Mario World on the Super Nintendo. There's battery saves, an overworld map, secret levels, bonus games, 6 unique worlds, and graphically, it just looks more like Mario. One interesting change to the Mario formula is the storyline. For once, Mario isn't rescuing a princess. Kiyotake stated, "Mario has always fought for someone else's benefit, but we thought it would be a nice change of pace to make a game where he's fighting to win back something of his own." In this instance, Mario tries to take back his castle from a new villain named Wario. Wario made his debut in Super Mario Land 2 and has become a mainstay in the Mario universe. He began simply as a name. R&D 1 wanted to create a new villain for Mario. Well, Mario's a good guy, so what's the opposite of good? Bad. The word for bad in Japanese is warui. Flip the M upside down in Mario and you get Wario. R&D 1 imagined Wario as a Bluto-type enemy, if Mario was Popeye. This time you'll explore a world called Mario Land. I don't know where this is in relation to the Mushroom Kingdom, but it's apparently where Mario lives. He's done pretty well for himself to afford this massive castle. While Mario was in Sarasa Land saving Daisy, Wario, who has always been jealous of Mario, took over his land. So technically, this is a direct sequel. Within Mario Land are 6 unique worlds to explore. Conquering each world gets you a coin, and you need 6 of them to unlock the door to the castle, setting up your final battle with Wario. Takehiko Hosokawa, a relative newcomer to Nintendo, designed the whole look of the game. He'd only been with the company for a year and a half before starting work on Super Mario Land 2. But this was the first game he got to work on that really showed off his designs. And it's really superb work. Super Mario Land 2 feels and looks more like a Mario game. Each world feels pretty unique. They can be accessed at any time, so there's no certain order you need to beat them, meaning their difficulty is about the same. Kiyotake and his team claimed getting the difficulty level just right was the hardest part in making the game. You've got Pumpkin Zone, which has some spooky enemies. My favorite being the walking Jason mask, literally named Jason in Japan. Mario Zone has you explore a giant mechanical Mario statue. I guess Mario built this to worship himself. One cool Easter egg are the N and B blocks in one level. Back in the 60s, Nintendo made these to compete against Legos. One level is built completely out of these blocks. Gunpei Yokoi worked on the N and B toys and was a producer on Super Mario Land 2. Neat. Turtle Zone is the required by gaming law underwater world. As a kid, I always thought being inside the whale was kinda creepy. Look at those teeth! Oh, and the sharks are wearing boxing gloves. Macro Zone has Mario shrunk down to a microscopic size, exploring a house and fighting off ants and mice. Whose house is this? We don't know. We'll probably never know. Space Zone was a unique area in that you can't just go to it on the map, you actually have to beat a level to get there. Gravity is gone and Mario can float around in space. It makes for some cool level design. Also, the world boss is Tatanga from the first Super Mario Land. And finally, there is Tree Zone, where you battle flies and bugs and eventually defeat a massive angry bird. Seriously, his name is just Bird. It's almost as good as Chicken from the first game. After you collect all 6 coins, you've got to take back your castle. This level is pretty challenging as it's full of traps. Wario and his crazed look awaits you at the end of your journey. One interesting change to gameplay is coins. Instead of getting 100 and resetting to 0, you can collect up to 999 coins. You can spend these coins on bonus games to win extra lives, power-ups, and more coins. Killing 100 enemies earns you a star power-up. Speaking of power-ups, there are plenty to find in Super Mario Land 2. The bunny ears are very cool, but it can also make levels very easy. You can literally flap your ears across areas and barely fall. The Fire Flower power-up is finally back. To get around the lack of colors, Mario grows a feather out of his hat to signify he can shoot fireballs. He also has this new spin move, which is handy for breaking blocks below you. R&D 1 did bring back a few things from the first game. If you reach the top area of the exit, you get to play a bonus game, and 1-ups are still hearts. Kazumi Totaka, another newcomer, composed the music in the game. And if that name sounds familiar, it should. Totaka is famous for Totaka's Song, a simple little jingle he likes to hide in the games he works on. He's still at Nintendo today, so he's hidden his song in a ton of games. For Super Mario Land 2, just wait on the Game Over screen for 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Totaka's work here is incredible. Catchy tunes and classic sound effects. Super Mario Land 2 6 Golden Coins was released on October 21st, 1992 in Japan, November 2nd, 1992 in North America, and January 28th, 1993 in Europe. It was the largest Game Boy game up to that point, a whopping 4 megabits. Like its predecessor, Super Mario Land 2 was a hit with critics. Electronic Gaming Monthly summed it up pretty well by stating, "Absolutely the best Game Boy action I've ever played." The game would go on to sell more than 11 million units, making it the 6th best-selling Game Boy game of all time. This is my personal favorite of the Super Mario Land games. They fixed all of my complaints from the first game. You can go back in a level now. There's way more stages. Mario feels like Mario again. My only real complaint is in some areas there's some slowdown. It's also a fairly easy game. Now, when I first beat Super Mario Land 2 as a kid, I thought for sure Mario had peaked. It can't get any better than this on the Game Boy, right? Well, in a way, Mario did peak with Super Mario Land 2, because the next game in the series stars not Mario, but Wario.
You're getting very greedy. You are me, Wario. You're very handsome. I'm the bad guy in Wario Land, Super Mario Land 3, where being bad is good and greed is good.
Yes, Wario Land, Super Mario Land 3, was the 3rd installment in the series. There is no doubt in my mind that Super Mario Land was added to the title for brand recognition. When the first 2 games sell more than 29 million units combined, it's a smart move. This was Wario's first game all to himself. Many of the same people who worked on Super Mario Land 2 returned, including director Hiroji Kiyotake and designer Takehiko Hosokawa. After getting kicked out of Mario's castle, Wario hears a rumor that the brown sugar pirates of Kitchen Island, yeah, there's a food theme in this game, stole a statue of Princess Peach. Wario's goal is to find the statue and sell it for a hefty price tag to buy his very own castle. It seems the developers kept with the theme of opposite of Mario. While Mario games are generally fast-paced with lots of platforming, Wario Land is a little slower paced with more exploration. And instead of mushrooms making you grow, it's garlic. The name of the game in Wario Land is Collecting Treasure. Wario collects coins, which are tallied up at the end of each level. You'll also have to spend money. You can't use checkpoints or even leave a level without ponying up some dough. You can even attack enemies with coins. Hidden throughout stages are treasures, which Wario admires after beating a level. He's just like a retro game collector. This aspect of the game really drew me in as a kid. It might have been the beginning of my love for collectibles in games. Wario can jump on enemies, but he has special hats that give him powers. The bull hat allows him to ram through blocks easily and ground pound, which stuns nearby enemies. The dragon hat lets Wario shoot out flames for a short period of time. And the jet hat lets you jump higher, run faster, and fly through the air. With 40 levels, it's a much bigger game than Super Mario Land 2. There's plenty of secrets in here as well. One cool feature is how the levels interact with the map. For example, in Rice Beach, one level will alternate between water and no water depending on the tide. Wario Land is also a fairly decent challenge. I can breeze through the first two Mario Land games, but Wario Land always gave me a good fight. The final boss is against this absolute unit of a genie, and once you defeat him, the map reveals the missing statue of Princess Peach. But here comes Mario, who did nothing, flying in to steal your prize. I actually feel bad for Wario. However, the genie decides to grant Wario one wish, and of course, he wants a castle. The size of the castle you get depends on how much treasure and coins you collected during your journey. My first playthrough, I got a tree stump. Wario Land Super Mario Land 3 was released on January 21st, 1994 in Japan, March 13th, 1994 in North America, and May 13th, 1994 in Europe. Critics once again loved the game. Wario even got his own cover of Nintendo Power on issue 58. The game sold more than 5 million copies. This game marked the beginning of the Wario Land series, and sadly, the end of the Super Mario Land series. In 1995, Nintendo hyped up their newest console, the Virtual Boy. It was basically a headset that played games. Everything was rendered in red and black, but it did have some cool 3D effects. Nintendo treated it as a successor to the Game Boy, but it was ultimately a disaster. During the Winter CES show of 1995, Nintendo teased a few titles, including a new Mario game. It went by several different names. Some called it Mario Adventure, others called it Mario Bros. Virtual Boy, but it's most commonly referred to online as Virtual Boy Mario Land. This game never came out, so we don't really know too much about it, but it looked like a standard Mario game that utilized some 3D effects. The Virtual Boy did get a Wario Land game though, and it's quite good. In fact, Nintendo kept making Wario Land games, the last one being Wario Land Shake It on the Nintendo Wii. In 2011, Nintendo released Super Mario 3D Land on the Nintendo 3DS. Was this a return to the Mario Land series? No. It has a similar name, but as far as I can tell, it has nothing to do with the Super Mario Land series. Nintendo took a gamble handing off the reins of Mario to a team that did not include Shigeru Miyamoto, but it ultimately paid off. Are these games revolutionary? Not really, but they were important. They clearly helped make the Game Boy a success by selling more than 34 million units combined. I have wonderful memories playing these games growing up, and I'm sure anyone else who played them feels the same way. In fact, one fan by the name of Toruz released a ROM hack that turned Super Mario Land 2 into a Game Boy Color game. It even added Luigi as a playable character. Very cool. But let's not forget that these games established new characters into the Mario universe. I mean, think about it. Without Super Mario Land, we might not have Daisy or Wario. And without Wario, we would have never gotten everyone's favorite character, Waluigi. That's all for this episode of The Gaming Historian. Thanks for watching.
Funding for Gaming Historian is provided in part by supporters on Patreon. Thank you.